far as we can go in this. I don't know his father's name, but there should be Le'ilu Nishmas Yaakov Alevi ben Miriam, a Mayanot student who was killed yesterday in Sydney. He's here for a couple of years. Wonderful, wonderful guy. Just amazing guy. He's a shaliach in Sydney now with his wife Adina, who's also a student of mine. She was in a SEM here in Eretz Yisrael. She's a little young to be a widow, I think. Anyway. Okay, yesterday we learned about customs. Right? That if you go to a certain place, so then you take upon that place the customs of that place within the context of it, obviously within the context of it being mutter. Right? And the Eibishter scattered us amongst the umes. And there are a number of reasons brought for that. One of the reasons is that Yidden in one place might have some sort of terrible gezerah that they're not allowed to fulfill certain mitzvahs. So then Yidden in another place will not have that gezerah, so they can fulfill those mitzvahs, and when they fulfill those mitzvahs, they're also fulfilling for the Yidden who are in that place, even though they don't know. They're fulfilling the mitzvahs so that for those people who were in somewhere in Russia where there was a gezerah against doing certain things. So that's one of the reasons brought. And we'll see others. Okay? So we just saw the very beginning of the second paragraph on the left on page 399. We just started, right? We finished our mimer and then started this. And in this, the reason we're learning this Sicha, as opposed to any other Sicha, not just because it happens to be the Rebbe said it, around this time of year, but because it discusses the inyan of Golus, which we discussed yesterday, and even discussed Australia yesterday, which is really bizarre. Ukedivrei Chazal, Azles lekarta halach b'ni musay. Chazal say, a medrash, you go to a place, you walk in there. Nimusim, in modern Hebrew, nimusim is etiquette. Right? Okay, so you walk in their ways. Ad shalocha nifsekes, to such an extent that halacha paskins. V'ze'ikr gadol b'chol divrei masu matan. This is something very important in all matters of business. When you're doing business, so if you say something, so it might be misconstrued. How do we understand what you said? Well, what do people in this place mean when they say those words? That's what you meant. You didn't mean that? Prove it. Right? Meaning you might have, anybody in business knows that there's certain ways people express themselves, and those ways will be different in different places. You have to be careful. Right? So what does a long time mean? I don't know. I'll rent this house for you for a long time. I'll rent this house to you for a long time. Today's Rambam. Right? Okay. What's a long time? Well, it depends where you live, isn't it? Right, a long time might be a week. If you're in some vacation resort, right? No one ever rents for more than a week. So after a week, the guy can come and say, well, a long time around here is a week. I want you out. I've got people coming for the next 4 days. Right? Or a long time might be 10 years. Right? What does a long time mean? Depends where you are, what the context is. And that'll matter in business dealings. I'm not such a business as you see. I brought a weak example, but okay, this is an important rule in all matters of business. You go after the language of people in that place, and after the customs that go in that place relative to business practices. The most important aspect of these things, the Rambam Sakin Hilchos business, is what? How do people use words in this place relative to those kinds of dealings? And then that's what you are beholden to as a businessman in that place, even though you're visiting. The customs of the land of the nations of the world, they are the majority of the inhabitants of the countries in Chutzlaretz. Why is it that we are in that place? In order to take advantage of these customs for the service of the Eibshter, to elevate them so that they become part of our relationship with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. Two different levels of Avodah that are discussed. All of your deeds should be for the sake of heaven, which is a Mishnah in Avos, and B'chol Drachei Deyehu, and in all your ways know him, which is a pasuk in Mishlei. And those are two. The Rebbe explains a famous Sicha in Chelik Yud, Parshas Vayeshev, if I'm not mistaken. If I am, please don't take it out on me personally. I believe it's Chelik Yud in Parshas Vayeshev. The Rebbe discusses the difference in those two different levels of Avodah. All of your deeds should be for the sake of heaven means that what I'm doing now is a means to a higher end. It's for the sake of heaven. Why am I eating breakfast? I'm eating breakfast because I need strength to learn Gemara after breakfast. All right? Okay. Does the food taste good? It does. It doesn't. Whatever it is. I need the food because I have to do what I have to do, and I can't do it without food. Okay? So that's called doing something l'shem shamayim, for the sake of heaven. And I could eat the food simply because I like eating food. Right, and I like the taste of food. There's nothing greater than, scrambled eggs and little vegetables cut into little pieces in the morning. And I mean, that's probably gets most of us out of bed. I mean, okay, we have to learn some chassidus before in order to earn our little, scrambled eggs and little vegetables cut into little pieces. But, I'd wait all day for that. It's just nothing. And you put a little tchin on it. Wow, it's like Gan Eden. Okay. So a person could eat breakfast with that in mind, or a person could eat breakfast with understanding that I'm eating this. Obviously, shouldn't taste bad, right? But I'm eating this. Why? I'm eating this because I need koyach to go do what it is I have to do the rest of the day, the rest of the morning until lunch. Then I'll eat some more, and that'll give me koyach for the rest of the day. Okay, that's doing something l'shem shamayim, but it's a means to an end. There's no holiness in the eating itself. Right? The eating is a means to another end. He said a bracha b'seder. But saying a bracha doesn't mean that all of a sudden my eating is now holy. It takes a lot of focus on the eating part also, or non-focus on the eating part and more focus on it being a means to a higher end. And that's called Masach Yul Shemayim. So everything that we do within the context of our life in the Rebbe's talking about life in Chutz La'aretz, life in Golus. So then that should be l'shem shamayim, using those things that have to be done in Chutz La'aretz and using them l'shem shamayim. And in a higher level, b'chol drachei deyehu, in all of your ways know him, which again is relative to mundane reality, eating, working, things like that. Right? Why do you work? A person goes to work. So obviously you work for your own livelihood. You need a place to live, and you have to eat, etc. But ultimately, why do you work? You work so that you can accomplish those things in Elam Hazah that you were sent to Elam Hazah to accomplish. So you can't do it if you don't have a place to eat and a place to live and a place to eat, right? And if you live in Manhattan, so you probably don't need a car, right? But if you live most places, you might need a car. Okay, right? You still live in Manhattan? You have a car? No, you don't need a car. so probably a pain to park. Right, so the those things that we need, why do we need them? So hopefully we need those things because we have a greater purpose in mind. We have to give some stoka, and we have to be involved in a community, etc. So there's all sorts of wonderful things we can do, but we need Elam Hazah. We need all these things in Elam Hazah in order to do them. So you have to go to work and make that happen. Okay, so work can be something that's done l'shem shamayim. Good, no question. What's b'chol drachei deyehu? All of your ways know him. Those things that you're doing are not simply a means to an end, they're an end unto themselves. Right? That you experience the godliness in the action that might be seen on a lower level. It's not a low level, it's a very high level, but it's lower than b'chol d'chei. That you see this thing not as simply a means to an end, but an end unto itself, because it itself is part of your relationship with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. Right? What does that mean? That means at work, not only is work what you're doing in order to accomplish certain things in your life and be able to do certain things, but the work theoretically is just a means to an end. So if you could do that without the work, you would do it. Right? Okay. So the work isn't necessarily of any importance unto itself. It's just a means to another end that's much more important. And if I could snap my fingers and have all those things that the work affords me, so then I would do that and I wouldn't go to work. Okay. Or I can see the workplace as a place where I can reveal godliness within the context of my interactions with everybody I'm meeting in the context of the day. And the fact that you're walking around with a yarmulke and tzitzis in certain places is itself an amazing thing. Right? Okay. And then the relationship you have with different people. So when you see those people, you realize you can give those people a certain insight into a different way of understanding what life is about. Right? You don't hit them over the head with a baseball bat with it, because that's not going to work. But if you work with them every single day, over time, hopefully they'll appreciate the fact that you have something that they might want. A certain peace of mind, a certain focus, a certain centeredness, a certain appreciation of what's real in life and what's not real in life. And you don't have to advertise it. It's to live it. And if you live it, then everything you're doing is ultimately a function of your relationship with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. When you're eating, okay, so that's hardest. Eating is, it's interesting the way. In one of the Pada B'Shalom Maimarim, we learned one, and others, talks about the fact that the real, is it in the Pada B'Shalom we learned? I don't even remember. That the real battle in the world is eating and drinking. We said that the battle was davening. Okay, yes, there's the milchama of davening. But the real battle in the world, when are we really battling Eilam Hazeh? We're eating and drinking. Because that's when we get into Eilam Hazeh Mamish. Right? Ad Kedei Kach, that we talked about it yesterday in France, is what everybody does. We said it, but Ad Kedei Kach, that people might go even, obviously tourists have to go out to restaurants, right? Because they don't have anywhere to cook. But, other than taking your wife out to a restaurant or taking a good friend out to a restaurant who needs, a little tender loving care because they've been having a rough time. So restaurants, you don't see too many. I remember when they first started coming out with restaurants that were kosher l'mahadrin. So now what does that mean, kosher l'mahadrin? What does that literally mean? It's kosher l'mahadrin. What does mahadrin mean? An extra way, but the word itself is referring to people, not the food. The food is mihudar, right? I mean, the food will be, super kosher. It answers amen to your bracha. It's so kosher, the food, okay. But mihadrim are the people. People who are like Hanukkah, right? How do you like Hanukkah licht? Ner labayis, right? One candle for each house, right? V'hamahadrin, people who are Machlokes Rashi and the Rambam, exactly how you define mahadrin. Is it people who beautify mitzvahs or people who run after mitzvahs? Meaning, is it mahadrin et ha-mitzvot? They make them beautiful, or mahadrin achar ha-mitzvot? They're running after mitzvahs. Right? Okay. Machlokes, but they mean the same. They don't mean the same thing, but they refer to the same general idea that a person is very careful about mitzvahs. So people who are very careful about mitzvahs, how do they light Hanukkah candles? Each person lights a light. Right? So if there's 8 guys in a house, so 8 people will light. There'll be 8 candles every night. Not 8, 16, 24. No. 8 the first night, 8 the second night, 8 the third night, 8 the fourth night. Right? Mahadrin, mina mahadrin, the most, the people who are so frum, you touch them and your finger burns. Those people, 1 the first night, 2 the second night, 3 the third night, 4 the fourth night, or 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It's a machlokes beis Hillel beis Shammai, right? That's mahadrin mina mahadrin. Hanukkah. And the Rebbe points out that this is the only halacha in Shulchan Aruch that everybody does mahadrin mina mahadrin. It's really fascinating nature of Hanukkah. We'll see it when the Maimah will start on Thursday. But the people, we talked about this in our last Hanukkah Maimah, the people who are lighting their Chanukiah, people who lit a Chanukiah last night on a kitchen table with tray food all around. Well, they lit one, so tonight will be a better test of it, right? Tonight, what are they going to do? They're going to light 2, mahadrin mina mahadrin. There's Wonder Bread and Spam on the table. Who knows what they've got there, right? They're lighting Hanukkah licht, mahadrin mina mahadrin, best way possible. So mahadrin actually means people who are very, very, very careful about mitzvahs. So a Rav in America was once asked about a new restaurant in New York that was kosher l'mahadrin. He said, people who are mahadrin don't go to restaurants. They don't waste their time in restaurants. Right? Now, sometimes you have to go to a restaurant. You have a business meeting, you go to a restaurant, you want to take someone out because it's their birthday or they just need a little rest. Take them to a restaurant. Okay, say you want a meeting with your family, okay, you go to a restaurant to have them in, fine. Not like a party, fine, no problem. But the idea of, just going out to a restaurant, well, why spend 2.5 hours eating when you can do it in 20 minutes and get a lot more done? Right? There's one advantage, someone else cooked and someone else does the dishes, but it takes a long time, that eating. Right? Eating should not take up that much of the day. So that was his line about kosher l'mahaj. Right? Okay, now in France, you just eat in restaurants every night. Right? That's just the way people eat. Right? So probably in France, no one would say such a thing. Relative to eating, I once heard this mushal. It's a good mushal. It's like eating your mother's chicken soup. When you're eating your mother's chicken soup, what are you thinking of? My mother. She makes the best chicken soup. My mother doesn't make the best chicken soup. She made very, very good chicken soup. But everybody I know agrees my wife makes the best chicken soup I've ever tasted. My kids all agree. Anybody who's ever come to our house, it's the best. I don't know what she does to it. She makes the best chicken soup I do. It's unbelievable. It's really good. She makes so much and makes sure there's leftovers for Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Last night I didn't add something else. Tonight I'll have some chicken soup. There's still a little left. I checked in the fridge. Right? No, she doesn't put feet. But she does put a lot of stuff. She gets whole chickens and gets the guy to cut up the chickens and give her what she wants, and then the rest of it she puts in these bags, and I don't know what. It's so good. I don't know what it is. It's really good. Yesterday our kid who lives in Har Choma is a shliach out in Har Choma, which is the southeast corner of the city, and we live in the northwest corner of the city. He has a little guy. Is he 1 year old yet? I don't think he's 1 year old yet, but he's really cute. So he needed a little chicken soup. He came to our house. He has a key. Cooked. He didn't clean up the pot, the creep. Right? He has a key. All right, it's on my tape now. He has a key, and he came in and he made his little guy some chicken soup from Savta so that he'll get better. Came across the city to have some chicken soup. Right? Okay. So when you're eating the Eibishter's food, I just like having your mother's chicken soup. This is the Eibishter's tomato. This is the Eibishter's apple. This is my tati's apple. I'm eating my tati's apple. Look at my tati gave me an apple. My tati grew this apple just for me. This apple grew on that tree just so I could have this apple. Why? Because my tati loves me. Maseda, you made a boy pray. It's good, but you appreciate the fact that this is your tati. This is the Eibishter's chicken soup, what you're eating right now. Right? Oh, that's a whole different type of eating. Right? The Eibishter made this apple just for you. Until actually involving oneself in what's going on around you in the society you're part of, even if that society is actually a non-Jewish society per se, you can increase in Torah mitzvahs through the avodah of Kol Masachi L'Shem Shamayim B'chol D'Chadeyehu. A person working in Chutzlaritz where perhaps, New York I'm sure is a little different, but where perhaps, still I'd imagine in New York, most of the people you work with, Jewish or non-Jewish?
And Jewish.
Jewish. Right? It's New York. Right? Or is that dafka the business you're in?
I made it that way, but I used to not work in that setting.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, because a lot of people are going to work in a place where most of the people are non-Jewish. Okay, Shav Mitzvahs B'nai Noyach. You've got what to do in that place. Working in Eretz Yisrael in a place, got a lot of work to do everywhere you go to work. Right? A lot of Jews there. How many of them put on tefillin? Right? Probably a lot. Some might not. That's why you're there. Ukalosh nechsidis, babir maimer chazal. And in the language of Chassidus that explains the famous Maimer Chazal, Lo higla Kadosh Baruch Hu es Yisrael lebein ha'umayis. So Kadosh Baruch Hu only put us amongst the Umas ha'elam, amongst the nations of the world, Ela Kadeshis Vasvula Aleim Gedim. They should increase upon us Gedim. Now, simple pshat is converts. But that's really not how anybody explains it. What are the Gedim? Right? Gedim, Roimez, hints, Umisyaches, and relates Lenitzutzeitz HaKedusha to the sparks of holiness HaMitsuyim B'chol Inyonei Ha'olam that are found in all matters of the world, obviously all matters that are permitted. right? The sparks of holiness. V'zeh shehigla Kadosh Baruch Hu Yisrael, and the fact that Kadosh Baruch Hu sent us into Golus, into all sorts of places. What is our avodah ultimately? Sheinim beidim, all sorts of different places in the world. This is in order to levader, to rectify, lezachech, to purify, lalos, and to elevate. Hanitzutzes, the sparks of holiness, a mitzuyim b'makom zeh, to elevate that place. Do a mitzvah in that place. Make that place a holy place by virtue of the fact that you've done a mitzvah there. Can a non-Jew elevate it? He can elevate it. There's no question. Can he elevate it like you can? No. You have a greater power to elevate physicality than anything else walking around on earth. So the Eibusha, what did he do? He scattered us all over to elevate everything that has to be elevated. Ulechein, therefore, tztaka asa Kadosh Baruch Hu Yisrael. Therefore, the Eibusha did it tztaka. This is the statement we saw yesterday. Shepizron lebein umas, that he scattered us amongst the nations. Ki al yedei zeh, by virtue of this, misva sefes ha'maylo, it's increased the advantage mi avedasam bebira nitzutzei kedusha, in their service of the rectifying of and elevating of these sparks of holiness and mitzuyim that are found be. Now the Rebbe adds in parentheses minhagei kol medina medina, in the minhagim of those places, but also just in those places b'chlal kol medina medina b'chol makom u'makom. And what might that also include? People. Might also include gerim mamish gerei tzedek, people who are somehow some soul got lost and ended up wherever it ended up, and that soul has to run into a yid and somehow end up being back part of the Jewish people. As Chazal say a very interesting thing. They say ger sheniz gayer when they mention a convert in Mishnayos. Ger sheniz gayer, a convert who converts. What should it say? Goy sheniz gayer, a non-Jew who converts. No, ger sheniz gayer, meaning what was this person before? They were destined to be a Jew. They were just trapped in the wrong body, and they have to go through some sort of process. Right? And that process is called Gators. Okay, so you have to have a bar mitzvah and memorize a haftarah. They have to go through whatever they go through. You don't have to do anything to become Jewish per se. But so they missed the bar mitzvah, but they ended up where they're supposed to end up. It's very interesting the language of Chazal. Ger sheniz gar. What do you mean ger sheniz gar? It should be nochri sheniz gar. Non-Jew that converts. No, a convert who converts. It's already a convert. It just has to be revealed. What's that? It's a spark that's out there. It has to be elevated. Right? So why do we find ourselves in all these places? Right? To do some positive thing. Right? It's an amazing story. So it's a longer story. I mean, not so long, but it's all right. Rabbi Yosef Weinberg, all of a show. Rabbi Yosef Weinberg was a very well-known chassid in Crown Heights. He davened from the Amud, Rosh Hashanah by the Rebbe. He happens to be the father of the shaliach in the town that I grew up in. He has sons in Kansas City and in Vancouver and in Detroit and in Johannesburg, Levi Weinberg in Johannesburg. Lessons in Tanya. So those are his classes on the radio, WEVD, the station that speaks your language in New York. Is there still WEVD in New York? No one listens to radio anymore. WEVD was a station in New York that had Yiddish broadcasting. But it also had Spanish and Portuguese. It was the station that speaks your language. Different times of the day, there would be different languages on WEVD. But a lot of Jewish stuff. And because there's a lot of people in New York who speak Jewish stuff. So he gave a Tanya shir on the radio every Motzei Shabbos, live on the radio every Motzei Shabbos. And the notes of that Tanya shir are the source of the book called Lessons in Tanya that you guys have probably seen around. Right? That was written by his sons. Right? The son who lives in Vancouver has his notebooks where he was writing his notes, and he would give them into the Rebbe, and the Rebbe would write notes on his notes, and he has the book with the Rebbe's notes on his father's notes on Tanya. So that's an unauthorized version of the notes on Tanya. So that's Yosef Weinberg. So Yosef Weinberg also used to travel around a lot for the Rebbe and also to raise money for yeshivas, specifically for the yeshiva in 770. And he traveled in the days when travel was much more difficult. So he went into the Rebbe Vayeshev and told the Rebbe that he was going to South Africa, and he was supposed to land on Wednesday. So the Rebbe asked him, "Are you stopping any?" Maybe Tuesday. I think Tuesday or Wednesday. Anyway, you'll figure out from the story. You can figure out as well as I can, right? So the Rebbe asked him, "Are you stopping anywhere for a day or two?" So he said, "No, I have a direct flight." Direct does not mean non-stop. Direct in those days to get to South Africa meant New York, London, London, Lisbon, Lisbon, Dakar, which is, what's it called now? I don't know. In those days it was French West Africa. Maybe it's called Senegal now. It might be called Senegal. Yeah. And then Johannesburg. That's how you hopped to Johannesburg.
Kosher food option on the plane?
Yeah, right. Kosher food option on the plane. Maybe New York, London, who knows? But I don't know how much kosher food there was in Dakar, Senegal. So, fine. So he said, "No, I'm flying direct." Okay, so they spoke for a few more minutes, and the Rebbe said, "Are you stopping anywhere on the way?" So he didn't say anything. For a day or two, he said. "You stopping anywhere for a day or two?" Didn't say anything. So he got home. His wife, Alea Sholem, wonderful, wonderful woman, Esther, Yossi Shem Tov's wife, our Yossi Shem Tov, his wife is named Esther. It's named after that Esther. That's her great-grandmother. It's her grandfather's mother. Her grandfather's shliach in the town I grew up in. I saw Yossi's father-in-law grow up. He used to sit on my lap when I go there for Shabbos when I was first getting from in Vancouver. David Weinberg is now a shaliach in Cape Town. So that's Esther Shem Tov's father. So Esther Shem Tov's great-grandmother is Esther. This is a story about her great-grandfather. That he went to tell his wife, he said, "Look, I'm supposed to get to South Africa, let's say Wednesday morning, but I'm clearly not, because twice in the Yechidus, the Rebbe asked me if I'm stopping anywhere for a day or two, so I must be, but I don't know where, so I'll let you know when I get there. But don't expect to call Wednesday from South Africa, because I assume I'm not getting there Wednesday." Twice in Yechidus, the Rebbe asked her, "You're stopping for a day or two?" "I guess I'm stopping for a day or two somewhere. I don't know where. We'll find out." Fine. They get on the plane, they go to London. Fine. They fly to Lisbon. There's a little bit of engine trouble in Lisbon. So he says, "No, maybe Lisbon. Maybe I'm supposed to be in Lisbon." So then they fix the engine trouble and they fly to Dakar. Dakar, French West Africa. Maybe Dakar or Dakar? I think Dakar. R, right. So he gets to Dakar and there's serious engine trouble. Now on the plane is another from guy going to South Africa. So this is, let's say, Wednesday. And they say that we are experiencing some trouble. We can't fly this plane. We will be here for 2 or 3 days until we can get another plane. So the other guy's freaking out. 3 days is Shabbos. So Yossi Weinberg says to him, "Don't worry, we're only here for a maximum 2 days, because the Rebbe said to me twice in Yechidus, so you're stopping someone for a day or two. He did not say 3 days, so we won't be here 3 days. Don't worry. We're making it to South Africa by Shabbos. No problem." I don't know how calm he was, but Yossi was calm as can be. So of course they put him up in a hotel. He went to the hotel, checked into his room, probably had the daven or whatever. Right? Came down, went to the concierge at the front of the hotel and said, "Are there any Jews here?" He said, "Obviously I have a shlichus here. If the Rebbe asked me if I'm stopping for a day or two, I obviously have a shlichus here. I'm not here to see Dakar, French West Africa. I'm not here to see whatever waterfall exists 100 miles from the city. I must be here on shlichus. What's my shlichus? I haven't got a clue." Right? Okay. So he walked to the concierge in the front of the doorman. His nice name is concierge, nicer than a doorman, and asked him if there's any Jews around. He said, "Well, actually, across the street there's a jewelry store, and it's run by a young Jewish guy from Lebanon named Clement. I don't remember his name. Clement in Louisiana, but he ain't Clement. He's Clement." Okay, so he goes across the street and says hello to Clement. and he spends 2 days with Clement. He asked, are there any Jews here? Yeah. Why don't we get them together tonight for a get-together? So they got the whole Jewish community. There were some Jews there. A lot of the Jews were from Lebanon. Lebanon in those days was the what did they call it? The something of the Switzerland of the Middle East, I think they called it. Lebanon was a rich country until the Palestinians went to Lebanon and destroyed it, like they destroy everything else they touch. And that was in the 70s after they were kicked out of Jordan. King Hussein kicked them out of Jordan. They went to Lebanon and they completely destroyed Lebanon. So Lebanon now is just a mess. But until then, Lebanon was the richest country in the Middle East, and it had a name. Switzerland of the Middle East or something. It was a very, very wealthy country and a fabulous economy. And the language that most people spoke was French. A lot of Arabic, obviously, but the people who were running the place were speaking French. And it was mostly run by Christians, and basically got along with us. I mean, they weren't supposed to, and so they didn't, but they really weren't interested in the whole thing. And it was a flourishing country. So Clement was originally from Lebanon, and of course he speaks French, and French West Africa speaks French, so he moved there to make some money. So he's making a good living, and that's what most of the Jews there were, Lebanese Jews who had moved. And they were making some money in French West Africa. They all met. To make a long story shorter, so by the time he left, so Clement became very close with Rabbi Weinberg, and one of the things he asked him was about getting married. He was probably 30. Clement, so you're getting married? You have a girlfriend? She Jewish? Well, so Baruch Hashem, Rabbi Weinberg was able to convince Clement that was not the way to go in the 2 days that he was there, and asked Clement if he put on tefillin every day. He said he used to, but he left them in Lebanon, so he said, okay. Tefillin was sent to any male in French West Africa that wanted tefillin. Tefillin was sent from 770 after Rabbi Weinberg was there. He called up, sent a telegram, said this is what we need. And matzah, it might even be to this day, because as far as I know, Clement still lives there. Right, that matzah is sent every year from 770 to the community in Senegal because of Rabbi Weinberg's day or two that he was stopping on the way somewhere. That's what he did that day or two. Right? Changed the community in Senegal. Why? Because he realized I'm in Shluchus here. There's something I'm here for a reason. I'm not here just stump. And the Rebbe did tell him, it's an advantage. The Rebbe asked him, are you staying somewhere for a day or two? Okay. So that's taking advantage of realizing that I'm in a place, and what do I have to do? I have to elevate that place. Mizeh muvenis. Back to the Maimer. Second paragraph on the right column on page 400. Hamayle bekach. The advantage. Yehudim mispazrim and misyashvim b'medinas rabbis beilam. Not that we don't want Mashiach. Obviously, we want Mashiach to come. This is Lubavitcher Rebbe talking here, right? So I think it might be the Lubavitcher Rebbe talks about Mashiach a lot also. Right? But he's also talking about the fact that, obviously, if the Eibusher put us in Golus, there's a purpose, and there's some sort of advantage of us being in Golus. Otherwise, the Eibusher wouldn't have done it. Why did he put us in all these places? Right? Sheyehudim mispazim, they're spread out, scattered, and misyashvim, and they're settled, but Medinas Rabbis Beilim in many places in the world. Ad la'ofen, to such an extent, shel ufaratz the yom of akedma v'tzafena v'negva. Right? You've spread out mamish everywhere, kebirchas HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yaakov, even to a place as far away as Australia, which unfortunately was the source of terrible news yesterday, but is also the source of amazing news in terms of what goes on there and the shlichus that goes on. Ki dafka al yedei avedosam shel b'nei Yisrael, dafka by virtue of the aveda b'nei Yisrael, b'kol medinas ha'olam, in all of the places in the world, ba'ofen, in a way of hislavshus pnimis, inner in clothing, meaning part of the fabric of the community there. B'kol makim lefi inyana, in each place in its way. Al yedei zes shemisyashivim misgarim b'medina zes, by virtue of the fact that they settle there and they live there. Umisnagim binyanim amutarim lefi minhagi amakim, and they are behaving in line with those matters which are mutter, that are the customs of the place, like we were mentioning earlier, the business dealings. So then a Jew is elevating all the business dealings of wherever they are. Yochel Yehudi Lifo, therefore a Jew can bring about us a bidur v'zikuch, the rectification and the purification, ba'ifin shel milamata lamayla, from below above, b'kol mokem u'mokem, in each and every place, l'fi inyanehu, in accordance with the reality of that place. U'betzurek hazayis, and in such a way, nif'elis hadir lo yizbarach b'tachtoinim, that the dwelling place of a Kadosh Baruch Hu in the lower realms. It's so interesting what the Rebbe says here. It's very unique. It's not something you find in many places. Tachtoinim, Lashon Rabim, plural, meaning what? All sorts of places. Not tachtoin, the low realm, the lower realms. But it's not the lower realms, because we know it's only talking about this world. It's all these different places in the lower realm. All these different places have to be elevated. Right? They have to be illuminated by Hanukkah licht. Our kids in Cairns, Australia yesterday had close to 200 people at a Hanukkah lighting in downtown Cairns, Australia. Yes, with police protection, which they had arranged before, because unfortunately that's what you have to do, even though there's very few Muslims up north. This is up north, and it's a 4-hour flight from Sydney. It's way up north. It's on the Great Barrier Reef. That's what makes Cairns famous. That's why people come to Cairns, is they want to go scuba diving on the Great Barrier Reef. And it's about a 2-hour boat ride straight out into the Pacific Ocean, which is something that some people like to do a lot of times. I did it once, and that was enough. Okay, I've done that. I've seen that. I don't have to do that again. My kids would do another 10 times. I was okay, but I mean, my goodness gracious, I jumping out of a boat in the middle of the Pacific Ocean where you can't see land anywhere, and it's probably where you are right now is probably about 1,000 meters deep, and then you swim over to a place that all of a sudden is 2.5 feet deep, because there's this reef below you. You're not allowed to stand on it because you want to destroy it, so you float above it. So it is pretty astounding. I get that. Okay. Been there, done that. Okay. The boat ride out was really, really something. We couldn't afford the catamaran. There's the rich way out and the plebeian way out. We took the plebeian way out, which was still a fortune, right? The rich way is like really a fortune. So they were, zipping by us on the way back as we were toddling along. They took 2 hours, took us 3 hours. I said 2 because I'm sure you guys are classier than me, and you'll take the catamaran if you're ever here. But okay. What's Cairns all about, really? Cairns is all about the fact that yesterday there was a Hanukkah licht with 200 people in the main park in the middle of Cairns, right on the ocean. Baruch Hashem, and went by without any hitch, and it should go every night. Now tonight they're in a place called Townsville, which is 5 hours away. Lighting in Townsville. Lots of Jews in Townsville. Hanukkah, they're in charge of about, I don't know how many hundreds of miles of coastline up there.
Oh, really?
That because there's no one around. So
right.
That, from, I don't know, the southernmost point to the northernmost point, it's got to be 400 or 500 miles or more. So basically the only time they ever get to the far-flung places is Hanukkah. So they just go on a tiyul with their kids, place to place, different lighting in different places every night. And Jews come out. It's unbelievable. And why? What's the purpose of all that? Well, yeah, the Rebbe's telling you what to elevate those places. These are places where the light of Hanukkah never, ever, ever shone in the history of the world. Now it's there. That's what Golus is about. For whatever reason, Mashiach couldn't come until that happened. Now he can come. He should come take it from Yad Mamish. Tachtenim, Loshen Rabin, Kol Tachten, all different places of lower realms, Mokim. Lefi Gidrahu, in accordance with its, a Geder is the nature of the place. A Geder is a fence. We need the description of the face of the place, the delineated reality of the place. Right? That's its Geder. Mashein came. It's not the case. Kashenim soim b'mokim mahu ba'ofen arai. if a person's found in that place in a less than, means temporarily, or shemashpim sham mimakam acher, or that there's influence there from another place, leimatzlichim lifel sham, they're not able to affect life there, but in the same way, kefisha nitan lifol, as they're able to affect b'shah, in the time shechayim sham b'kvius, when they're living there in a kavua, an established way, ubisyashvus, in a settled way, umismatzim b'minhagim makim, they're part of the place, right? Meaning, interesting enough, the place where our kids are in Cairns, Australia. What used to happen in Cairns, Australia? The equivalent of what's called in America Merka Shlichus, right? There's a businessman he's a lawyer, in Melbourne, who every nickel that he had was put into an organization called RA. It's so Australian to call something RA. Rural and Regional Australia, right? If you've ever seen a map of Australia, Australia is huge. It's 5 hours from one side to the other, 4 hours from the bottom to the top in a plane. It's a huge place, right? Okay, what's there? Almost nothing. Along the bottom, so there's Perth all the way in the west, and then Melbourne and Sydney and Adelaide in a little place, and there's Canberra in between Melbourne and Sydney, which was planted there because they couldn't decide which should be the capital, so they made up another city in the middle. A la Washington, D.C., right? Should it be New York or Boston? We'll drain a swamp and we'll put our capital there, so no one will get upset. Okay, so the Canberra, and nothing happens. There's a shliach there. But the middle, no, especially nothing. Mamish. Okay, so, but there are Jews in all these places out there in the middle of nowhere, so there used to be something called Ra. And Ra went around to these Jews in the summer, etc., like Merka Shlichus in America, where young Bachim will go to places where Shluchim don't make it. There are no Shluchim there, so but there's still a Jew there, so someone will knock on their door once a year and ask them if they have a mezuzah, they want some Torah, put on tefillin, whatever it happens to be. So there's a limited hashpah you can have in that way. There's a limited hashpah that Rabbi Weinberg could have in Dakar, Senegal. What did he do? Well, he appointed Clement as his shaliach there. Like, okay, you're going to be the shaliach of the Rebbe here in Dakar. And Clement started taking care of all the religious needs of the place. Clement. Okay. So how do you really affect the place? You live there. Right? Why is it that I'm not flying the flag? This is just a fact. Why is it that the Lubavitchers have a greater impact on the cities that they live in than the Orthodox rabbis in those cities, in the small cities? Because the Orthodox rabbi leaves after 10 years and gets a better place, like a better place to be an Orthodox rabbi. He doesn't want to stay. All the Orthodox rabbis in Vancouver, what happens? They're there for 10 years and then they get a better job in Toronto. Right? Why do you want to be in Vancouver? It's a whole shabahol in terms of Jewish activity, okay? The Lubavitchers got there 45 years ago and they're still there. They're not going anywhere. Right? Why? It's the way Lubavitch works. So how are you going to have an impact on the town? You're going to have a greater impact on the town. Obviously, it depends on the person, but you're going to have a greater impact on the town if you're just there. This is where you are. So the Rebbe should put us in all these places. Neisef lezeh. In addition, a couple more paragraphs. We're going to stop at 8:30. Neisef lezeh misvasef al yedei aveda b'derech zu. It's added, it's increased as a result of this aveda. But teikef atzlochas aveda. We can move on to pashtus. Not only can the person have the person is much more successful by virtue of the fact that they're there. Hatam lahevdalei minhagim, as is understood simply. The reason for all these different minhagim, al pitara, and interesting enough, there's also different minhagim al pitara, right? People in Algeria have different minhagim than people in Morocco, who have different minhagim than people in Greece, who have different minhagim than people in France. Our minhagim. Not the non-Jewish minhagim, the Jewish minhagim are different in all these places. Hatam levdali minhagim al pitara shebein Medina leMedina. Here the Rebbe is talking about the non-Jewish world. Harehu machmas atchunes hamiyuchades shel Medina. This is relevant to the particular character of that Medina. Tchunes hamakim, the character of the geography of the place, the weather of the place. Tchunas anshe amakim, the character of the people in the place. Ukiyetze bezeh, right? Okay. People who live in cold places have to be a little more industrious than people who live in warm places, right? You don't have to do a lot if you live in a place where you can walk around in a loincloth and eat berries all day. Well, so the people who lived in those places where you can walk around in a loincloth and eat berries all day sort of still were walking around in loincloths and eating berries hundreds of years after other people had figured out how to do all sorts of rather sophisticated things to stay alive, because in those places, like, Northern Europe, if you don't do that, you die. Okay, well, so that's sort of a good reason to figure out how to make life a little easier. If life is already relatively easy, so you don't have to do much, right? Okay. Now, there are disadvantages to that. The loincloth and the berries. Very little technology relative to dealing with disease. So people died all the time. Whereas in those other places where they had to be rather creative to figure out how to stay warm in the winter and etc., so they also developed all sorts of other things like medicine, etc., that then they exported everywhere else, which was nice of them. They did other things in those places, which was not nice of them. Right? Horrible things, but also nice things. Medicine. Oh, what an amazing thing. Medicine. Good idea. So half my kids aren't going to die anymore? Right, half your kids aren't going to die anymore. Oh, that's good. Right. I'm in favor of that. Lochein. So that's just, the nature of what goes on has a lot to do with where you are. When you act in accordance with minhag hamakom, and even if you're in those places where people are walking around with loincloths eating berries, you're not allowed to walk around in a loincloth. In those places you have to wear clothes, right? But you can eat berries, right? Most of those berries are okay. You should check them for bugs. Check the berries for bugs. Right? You're going to have someone there who knows bugs really well. How do you check a berry for this berry for bugs? Hamasim yeser l'tchunas makom zeh, right? So whatever people do is in line with the nature of that place. Maybe hadover hatzlochi yaseder. So then, of course, that will lead to greater success if a person understands what goes on in that place and how it works and how to talk to people and what people respond to positively, etc. Right? Okay. So you're a shaliach in some place where football is the religion. Okay, so you don't have to be a football fan, but you're going to have to know what it is. Because if you don't know what it is, you can't talk to half the people about what they talk about all day. So what are you probably going to do in your Chabad house if you want a minyan for Mincha during the World Cup? You're going to put up a giant screen in the Chabad house, not in the sanctuary. It's somewhere in the Chabad house. You're going to have a giant screen. It's what everybody in South America does, right? You have a giant, because if it's in Europe, so then the games are happening at a time where you probably need people for Mincha Marav, right? Okay. I'm just thinking of a friend of mine in Brazil, right? It happens to be his biggest supporter was Mitsubishi in Brazil, Mitsubishi Electronics in Brazil. Close friend of mine. So he said, Leo, I need a big screen TV. So, okay, why? He said, the World Cup, we're going to have to be showing it every day, or else no one's going to come for me to come here. So I had this huge screen, and the whole chevra came to watch the game. Us at halftime, the only time you could have mincha was a halftime. Didn't matter, forget the sunset. Halftime, that was mincha. And mincha, and he remembers why Brazil, of course, is always in it, and they're meshuggah about this in Brazil. They're mamish meshuggah. So he remembers once that one of the guys was missing. Well, he knows all this cover. There's like 30 guys there. One of them's missing. Where's whatever his name was, Rico? I don't know. So he's looking around, can't find him. He goes into the sanctuary. He notices that the curtain's open. Rico had jumped into the Aron Kodesh. He was standing in the Aron Kodesh, holding on to a Sefer Torah, davening that Brazil should win the game that was happening outside. Mm-hmm. I have no idea. I think that, so they usually do. So, probably, I can say probably, because they usually do anyway. But, okay. So that's minhag hamakam, right? Is it mutter? Of course it's mutter. Is it something that Yossi's, this guy, this shuli expenses, he doesn't know who's who. But what did they have? The amazing thing, Taka, this time of year, he and David Whiteman, another shaliach in Sao Paulo, they went the derby. A derby. You know what a derby is? Anybody know what a derby is? You know. Okay. Someone has to have a little. Wait. Okay. It's a derby, but it's not called a derby. It's called a derby. A derby is a game between the two local soccer teams, right? Because in America you use the one team per city. Big cities might have two, okay, but if the Jets play the Giants in New York, that's called a derby. They don't call it that, but that's, so when two teams in London play each other, it's called a London derby. So the two biggest teams in Sao Paulo were playing each other. Corinthians and Sao Paulo. Those are the names of the teams. Even I know this. So what did they do? I know this because I used to go there all the time. What did they do? They had a Hanukkah light. They lit a menorah at halftime. There's 100,000 people in the stadium. 50,000 Corinthian fans and 50,000 Sao Paulo fans, which are separated by a fence and lots of police. Because they will kill each other if they're in the same. It's not. America is one of the first, only places in the world, and to its credit, you can be wearing a Giants shirt next, in a, well, they play in the same stadium, so that's not a good one. But you can be wearing the opposite team's sweatshirt in Kansas City. No one's going to kill you, right? I mean, they'll just, they'll talk to you, and they'll have a good. No one cares. Everybody gets along. In a soccer game, in Europe. England, you can't. Are you kidding? They have to separate them. So what happened to them? These two shluchim. So they were interviewed after the game on television. Of course, there's a camera and a microphone and two funny-looking guys and a reporter. So if there's a couple hundred people around. People love television, right? There's a couple of hundred people around. This is after the game. And they were on the, let's say, I don't remember which side of the stadium they were on the Sao Paulo side of the stadium. Let's say that team. So they asked one of the shluchim, "Who's your team?" I said, "Don't say anything." But the other guy, not Yossi told me the story. The other guy said, "Oh, I'm a big Corinthians fan." They needed a police escort out of the stadium. The fans were going to kill them. I mean, there were 200, 300 people out there that were going to kill them, and the cops heard him say that, and they immediately surrounded them and said, "Come with us," and they walked them out of the stadium. They were going to kill them, right? So you have to have a little brains. You have to know how things work. In Brazil, you don't say that in Brazil, right? You're a shaliach in Brazil, you should know that. That's what the Rebbe is talking about, right? You have to be pious, and then you're going to have more success, right? You just lost 50,000 people by saying that, right? And how many of those are Jews? 20. That's enough. You said you're a Corinthians fan, they won't talk to you. Now maybe the Jews are a little more normal. I don't know. Probably not. Okay. Let's just read these brackets and we'll stop, right? You have to use these minhagim for Vedas Hashem. Shahari al yedei kach mevi adavar teisefes hatzlocha gam b'vedosei be'etim leminhag ha'elam. He'll have greater success regarding matters that have to do with the place. If he knows the places a little bit, and he's also elevating it to kedusha. So how do you elevate the love for soccer in Brazil to a level of kedusha? You light a menorah in the middle of the field at the biggest game of the year, where there's literally 100,000 people in the stadium. How many times do people get to light a menorah in front of 100,000 people? Of which there's there's Jews in there, lots and lots and lots of Jews in there. A few thousand, not 8. Not like this would be in New York. Okay, so, but there's Jews. Va'ad shezeh gufa. Let's just read the parentheses and then the brackets. Ad shezeh gufa shalochi he shetzarech lina k'minhag makom, to such an extent that the halacha that you're supposed to act in accordance with the customs of the place in order to have success. You're doing it not because you don't want to stick out. You're doing it because you can elevate the place more successfully if you have an appreciation of the way things work in that place. Pale sheminhag makom nefach, such that this minhag makom, this custom of this place, is transformed lanhaga shal pitara, something that people might do al pitara. Right? Where do we see that? We see that in business dealings. The way people talk about in business now becomes how Shulchan Aruch wants you to conduct business in that place. And that doesn't mean you take graft and give sheikhad to people. No, that means that you talk in such a way and do dealings in such a way that it's in line with the way other people do it in that country, and then that so that what you say matters, right? Because what you say in business matters is going to have halacha consequence. Kloimar, shebamikrim elu she'ein b'davar mishum stira la'halacha. Then in those instances that there's no contradiction to halacha. Halacha atzma, the halacha itself, mechayeves Yehudi, obligates the Jew lisaneg lefi minhagei Medina binyanim masu matan. The Jew has to act in the way of that land, in business practices. Obviously, if there's something that everybody in that place does that's also, you're not allowed to do that. Okay, but if it's mutter, so then that's the way you have to behave. Not only should you, you must. Al pi Shulchan Aruch. In other words, the language you say matters. It's really fascinating, right? Now, that gets the Rambam we're learning now, right? The different ways people express themselves. So the renter will say one thing, and the rentor will say one thing, and the renter will say another thing. So who do we believe? Well, it depends on what language they're using and what words were used when they made the contract. Right? If I say to you, I'm renting this to you for a year, 12 months. Okay, it's a leap year. Who gets the extra month? I do. I'm the renter. Renter. I'm renting it out. I'm the rentor. I do it. Meaning you have to pay me 13 months rent for that year. Why? That's the minhag makom, but that's what that language means. When I say a year, I mean, even if I say 12 months afterwards, a year, 12 months, I mean a full year. That's what that language means when we use it. Now, what if it meant something else? So then you might be able to get the extra month. You'd get an extra month free. Because I meant from Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah. There's 13 months. Say there, but if the language we use when I say renting it for a year means you have to pay me 12 times between this Rosh Hashanah and next Rosh Hashanah, so you're going to get an extra month free. Right? Because you only have to pay me 12 times. That's the way we use language. Now, that isn't the way we use language. Even if I say a year, 12 months, I mean a full year. That's what I mean when I say that. Because I forgot it was a leap year. Let's say. Right? So you have to pay me the extra month. It's just the way it works. Right? So the same thing could work in France or in Belgium or in Senegal. Certain language means that, and la halacha, you have to follow that language. This is Gershon Haff. He's not a friend of Mayanot. He's an integral part of Mayanot.